Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate and the first annual Dumb Fuck of the Year award. Joining me this evening is Anthony Riley, Chocolate Saying, and The Plain Truth. We'll get to our guests in a moment, because if you are new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to join the channel, there is a link in the info box below the video, but be sure to mute the page you are currently watching before you join the panel. Also, please share the show. Sharing the show increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, throughout the show, we will be taking votes for any of our potential dumb fucks of the year. So if you would like to vote for Red's Rhetoric for his failure to prove a pressurized system next to a vacuum, you hit 1 in the chat to vote for Red's Rhetoric. So that's number 1 for Red's Rhetoric. If you'd like to vote for Sean Hufford for his failure to apply perspective, then hit 2 in the chat, and we'll tally these up as the show progresses. If you would like to vote for Charles, aka Flat Earth Math, hit 3 for his failure to prove R. And if you would like to vote for the man who failed to prove we have a self-perpetuating molten core, that would be Paul Voigt, hit 4 in the chat. And last but not least, we have the Rumpus for his failure after many weeks to failure to model the Isle of Man observation, which was first shown at the UK conference. So with that, I'll say a proper hello to my guests. Hello, gentlemen. How are you all doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Good morning.
Doing well. Doing well.
Where did this epiphany come from? Was this because I saw Flat Earth Math in with Patricia last night, and I was giving him a bit of abuse, you know, like friendly banter. And I said he deserved an award for being the only teacher, well, being a teacher that tells people that we live in a sphere, but never telling anybody that there is an alternative argument that's currently going on online right now. And I was just wondering whether it had anything to do with that, or is it unconnected?
Unconnected. Just a flash of inspiration. I just thought, I'm having that. That's going to be mine.
Do you know what? I don't blame you. You know, I'm so glad you've done it, because there are morons in this discussion, right? And there's a difference between making a mistake, getting something wrong, and just being a dumb fuck. And a lot of these people, there's somebody missing out of this award, this nomination list.
There's
Surely
a couple of people missing out of this.
Surely Mick West has got to have a shout for being dumb fuck of the year, for having the most used calculator that's useless in the history of Flat Earth.
Arguably, there are many people that would be on this list. But, I mean, you and I discussed the list last night, as you well know, and we came to that conclusion. And Mick West wasn't on it, but Mick West had the balls to actually come on and present an argument. And for that, I give him credit. And his obfuscation tactics were seen through, but nonetheless well thought out, and at least he had the balls to actually come on and challenge them. What we've got from a lot of the other people who are on the list is them claiming that they've got something over us at the moment, while we point out that they have got this wrong with perspective, or have no proof of R. The list goes on: self-perpetuating molten iron core, pressurized system next to a vacuum, all this stuff they've got no evidence of, and we're calling them out. We're saying, you guys have got this wrong, and we want to hold you to account for it. So we are going to hold you to account regardless of whether or not you join us on this public platform, where you can actually offer a retort, you can offer a rebuttal, unlike the circle jerks that these guys all have while they talk to each other about how their wonderful religion works perfectly. Well, it doesn't, and we're here to tell the world that. And, you know, like I say, the link, as always, is public, and in the case of Mick West, we had made no appointment for Mick West to join. He just clicked the public link. That's why, as he was in the chat demanding this and that from us, we made no concessions. If you want to join, you're free to, but we're not going to make any concessions. We're going to rip you a new one, and that's what this is all about today. Calling these guys out, but ultimately saying, you know, if you want to join, you can tell us how your self-perpetuating molten iron core actually works. I'm sure you'll have an excellent explanation. Yeah, so you can do that if you choose to.
In that case, isn't it worth going through the candidates one by one, and we'll just present them in the worst possible light, so that people that are in chat can basically hear the arguments against these people? Because there'll be people that are new that are watching that won't know these people, and they'll want to calibrate with their spidey senses how stupid these people really are. Should we go through them one by one and just destroy each one as we go through?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to do that. We'll start with Red Rhetoric. We'll do them in the order that you vote for them, so I'll call out their vote numbers. So if you want to vote for Red Rhetoric, you hit 1 in the chat, and we'll pay a vague bit of attention to what's going on in the chat, hopefully, throughout the show. But yeah, if you want to vote for Red. But if we start with Red Rhetoric, so you go ahead, Anthony.
But I think we should leave the vote until the end, because it might be. How are we going to do this voting? It's going to be hard to keep tabs of this as we're going through it if we're doing it while we're chatting.
Well, between you and I, Anthony, I'm going to arbitrarily decide who wins at the end anyway.
Right, okay.
So don't tell the audience that. Oh, was my mic on? Oh, my bad.
Right, so basically, Red's Rhetoric. What's his allegation that he fails to produce? What is it with him?
Failure to provide proof that we have a pressurized system next to a vacuum. Now, that's specific to Red because he's a space enthusiast. Moron.
Yeah. So, all right. So the argument is twofold, right? If we're on the sphere Earth, then your argument is that we have a gravity controlled, pressurized gradient, which gravity is the controlling factor. Now, if you live not on a sphere Earth, you're on our side of the fence. It's a density gradient, and it doesn't require a pressure. The density itself is the pressure. It's a fine line between the two, but essentially one requires a container and a ceiling, and the other one doesn't. The other one just requires the density itself. And Reds is the one that argues that gravity is this and gravity is that. And if you listen to the argument, it's really easy to be brainwashed by it because it does make logical and reasonable sense. However, he's got to show that a vacuum can exist next to a non-vacuum without a membrane, and it doesn't happen. He argues that, well, as the pressure gets less and less and less, eventually you end up with a negative, and they say it's not a negative because it's the vacuum of space, and it's not actually a negative, but ultimately it's still a vacuum, and a vacuum is the absence of anything, and that's got to exist next to this something which it can't exist next to, but gravity is the thing that causes it. So it's like, well, is he being a dumb fuck, or is he just being dishonest? You can interpret it any way you want. Red's Rhetoric argues that gravity is the thing, and gravity is the reason why we have the lower layer of air, and there are obviously better explanations for it, but that's his explanation for it. And I don't know, do you buy that, or do you think that's preposterous?
The question to be asked at this stage is, when somebody says that they have pressure, and it's gas-specific gas pressure, then it's measured. You have a PSI, and it's measured in terms of how much pressure is placed on the walls of the container. That's how you get the measurement. So it can't be pressing on nothing because it defies the definition of a gas pressure. So ultimately speaking, when someone says you have a pressure gradient, well, where do you get the gas pressure? That requires walls of a container to press upon, and you don't have it according to your bullshit bull religion.
You also don't have a membrane at the top to separate the barriers, and it's the gravity that's causing this. Yeah, gravity, as we all know, nobody can produce any evidence of it at all. So it's kind of, for me, he is an idiot. He is literally an idiot. But it does make logical and coherent sense if you believe the ball that you live on is real, and you worship your idols every week by watching the shows, thinking that they're brilliant. So is he being a dumb fuck, or is he just being dishonest, or is it both?
We're going to move on. We're going to move on at this point to Sean Hufford, number 2. So vote Sean Hufford, dumb fuck of the year. Hit 2 in the chat if you would like Sean to be that man. However, what we want to point out at this stage with number 2, Sean Hufford, this is an umbrella. So Sean Hufford's failure to apply perspective could equally apply to any single person. Paul Voigt, he goes into that umbrella too for sure. He was in the Isle of Man debate. So yes, all of them, without exception, are under this umbrella of a failure to apply perspective. So Sean Hufford, number 2, take it away, Anthony.
Sean has this habit of misrepresenting things that people are meant to have said. It isn't just me; it's every flat earther. I've heard that criticism about Sean from ball earthers themselves. I'm not going to name names, but ball earthers have literally said that Sean has a habit of misrepresenting people. And I thought it was just me. I thought it was a personal grudge against me. So I didn't realize that it was across the board. But he does this to everybody. And what Sean's position is that I've made my position really, really clear so that they understand it. But somehow he's now made a second misrepresentation of what my position is. His first misrepresentation was based on, I'm trying to remember what it was now. I can't remember what his first one. Oh, we did it in the other show, the other hangout. We got his words precisely. And what he did was he created a tangent that Reds identified correctly was nonsense. And they had a 3-hour hangout based on this nonsensical argument that Reds immediately identified, which was not my position. So they had a 3-hour circle jerk based on Sean's created tangents that was a misrepresentation, and it was totally void from the start. That wasn't my position, and I had to go at him for doing so. But then you would expect him to then get the position right. And his most recent claim is that me and Nathan think that you can't have perspective in orthographic view, which is the antithesis of our position. Our position is that you must have perspective in the orthographic view if you're to be representing your model correctly, because we never see evidence from the side profile. We always see it down the eyeballs or down the lens of the camera, which is first person view. It isn't side on, but in first person view, things get smaller in distance. But side on view, they're not applying that reduction in size. Side on, they're making it the same height, the absolute value, rather than the relative value. So you would expect Sean, once he's been shouted at for the first time for creating a misrepresentation, you'd expect him to pay more attention to what our position is. And he asked me in chat the other day, you and Nathan, how many times have you and Nathan said you can't have perspective in orthographic view? And it's like, that's not what we're saying, Sean. That's not our position. Are you actually paying attention to what is going on? Or are you just looking for any excuse to misrepresent us so that you can debunk us on a claim that we did not make, that you've misrepresented, and your circle jerk friends all think that is accurate because you've said it? Are you stupid? Are you able to cite people accurately with what the position is? I've been really clear. All right, granted, on the first show might not have been as clear as what it could have been, but once we worked out what I was trying to say and what the words were that were needed to be said, it now makes perfect sense. It is the application of the hidden value that you baller morons are doing wrong. You're applying it to the absolute value. You're not applying it to the relative value, because we do all see perspective. It is a thing. Sean continuously misrepresents me, and I'm sure he does it to other people too. So Sean deserves dumb fuck of the year because he's not able to cite people accurately. He gets them either out of context or he changes words subtly in the middle to make it sound somewhat different, and then he debunks it based on that. I mean, the guy's a moron. He's got the comprehension skills of a 6-year-old, yet somehow has got credit with the ballers, and what he says seems to have a lot of weight to it. The guy's a moron, and the ballers worship him for some reason. And I just find his position untenable because he's not able to cite people accurately, either in context or accurately with the words that they said. And for that reason, Sean Hufford, you are a dumb fuck.
So Sean Hufford, number 2, if you want to vote for Sean Hufford for his failure to apply perspective. And I will say again that this is actually an umbrella category, but it's been applied to Sean, as he's been quite vocal on the subject, but doesn't seem to get it. Dumb fuck. Anyway, moving on to number 3, which is Charles, aka Flat Earth Math, who has, by way of conditional acceptance, said that he can prove with scientific evidence the value of R. Now, it's been firmly established that there is no scientific evidence of R, and every time somebody claims it, they get their ass handed to them. So Charles still maintains this position, hence he has been nominated for Dumb Fuck of the Year. Because there is no scientific evidence of R, regardless of his pathetic conditional acceptance to weasel his way out of it whilst maintaining the position that there is actually some scientific evidence of R, which there is not, you dumb fuck. So, if you'd like to vote for Charles, aka Flat Earth Math, hit 3 and you can vote for him. Moving on, we've got Paul Voigt. Vote 4 for number 4, Paul Voigt, if you'd like to vote for him for his failure to prove that we have a self-perpetuating molten iron core. So, over to you, Anthony.
Paul Voigt is a self-proclaimed physicist. I don't know what that actually means, because I reckon in Paul's case it means he's probably a high school teacher. No disrespect to high school teachers, but it's not the same as a physicist, because if he was a physicist, he would have evidence when he speaks. Now, we've all learnt the value of having some evidence to support your position. Thankfully, if you're on the flat side, there's not that much evidence that we need to have other than there's no curve, there's no gravity, there's no axial rotation. But if you're on the ball side and make a claim that we have a self-perpetuating iron core that sits at around 10,000 degrees Celsius, but somehow self-perpetuates its own magnetic charge, which in turn causes our gravity, then you better as hell have some evidence to support that position if you put to the test. Paul, a physicist, he claims, went off to get papers, scientific papers, and basically they weren't relevant. They didn't address the point in hand. The point in hand is, of course, prove that there is an iron core at 10,000 degrees that self-perpetuates its own its own magnetic charge when the Curie temperature of iron is massively exceeded by like 10 times its value of about 750 degrees Celsius. How is it possible that we can have a self-induced, self-inducting magnetic charge unless we have an induced magnetic force from the outside, which is not part of their model? And the answer, of course, is it isn't. And there is no evidence for it. But Paul thought that there was. And basically, ever since he got called out, Paul never returned, which is good stuff, really, because he's a bit of a dumb fuck. So Paul claims that we have a self-perpetuating molten iron core, but when put to it, there was no evidence that proved this assertion to be true. And for that reason, he deserves to be a dumb fuck because he makes assertions that are not supported with any evidence whatsoever. And we can sit here and laugh at the moron. Paul Voigt, you are a dumb fuck.
So that's number 4 for Paul Voigt for his failure to prove the molten iron core with a self-perpetuating field. So number 4, hit 4 if you'd like to vote for Paul Voigt. Last but not least on this dismal list, we have the Rumpus in at number 5. So if you'd like to vote for the Rumpus as Dumb Fuck of the Year, then hit number 5 in the chat. Now, Rumpus is on this list for his total abject failure to model the Isle of Man, which he claimed he had already done on a hangout that was pre-recorded while the information was being withheld from him. So that failed to transpire. Anthony, over to you.
There's so many nominations for why this guy should be Dumb Fuck of the Year, but it's difficult to nominate one particular one. But the one claim that he did make that was totally wrong was that he had an explanation for it, and that he would release it the minute I released the footage that proved that I'd caught Floatyland from the beach. And I released it publicly at the Flat Earth Conference, the first Flat Earth Conference held in Birmingham. What was it now, 3 months ago, whatever it was. And they all got to see it first. It was an exclusive to the conference, but it went public then. Rumpus knew that it went public and he had time to respond, still didn't respond. And to this day, what is it, 3 months later, 2 months later? I don't know how long ago it was, but we are still waiting for the Rumpus's explanation for why Floatyland was seen from the beach at St. Bees when it should be 700 feet behind the curvature of the Earth and light only bends so much according to their model. Basically, it goes in straight lines. There is no explanation without changing the rules of science on the refractive index of air. So Rumpus cannot and has not produced his claim. So for that reason, well, not just that reason, but that's just one reason, Rumpus deserves to be the dumb fuck of the year because he makes claims, doesn't follow through with the evidence to support it, and hopes that it'll go away. And that's just one example. Rumpus deserves to be dumb fuck of the year because he is a dumb fuck.
That's number 5, if you'd like to vote for Rumpus, who, based on the numbers that came through while you were doing that, Anthony, it would seem we certainly have a front runner. So number 5, if you would like to vote for the Rumpus as the dumb fuck of the year. So let's just go through those nominees again. So we've got at number 1, Reg Rhetoric, for his failure to demonstrate a pressurized system next to a vacuum. Vote 1 for Reg Rhetoric. If you'd like to see Sean Hufford nominated and crowned dumb fuck of the year, then hit 2 in the chat for his failure to apply perspective, an umbrella category which all are guilty of. So vote 2 for Sean Hufford to be named dumb fuck of the year. If you'd like to see Charles, aka Flat Earth Math, for his failure to prove R, then hit 3 in the chat. So Flat Earth Math number 3. Number 4, we've got Paul Voigt for his failure to prove the molten iron self-perpetuating core of the Earth. So hit 4 if you'd like to vote for the Aussie Paul Voigt, self-proclaimed physicist, to be dumb fuck of the year. Hit number 4 for Paul Voigt. And last but not least, we have the Rumpus for his abject failure to model the Isle of Man observation. Hit 5 if you'd like to see Rumpus named Dumbfuck of the Year.
Do we have a late entry?
No. We can talk about them though. We can talk about all the honourable mentions, dishonourable mentions. Let's get it right.
Well, let me get a dishonourable mention, and we'll go with whether or not he deserves to be in, because by virtue of this fact, I would argue that he does deserve to be in. Basically, Sly Sparkane is the one that challenged me, amongst others, I might add, but specifically him. He challenged me to go and get the same footage that I got from the top hill at St. Bees from the beach. And when I went down to the beach and got the same footage, he just can't see it. He claims that there's no land there. He pretends that there isn't anything there. It's a bit like Admiral Nelson when he put the telescope up to his patch eye and he said he couldn't see any oncoming ships, and it was because he had the telescope to his patch. Well, that's essentially what Sly Sparkane has done. And in my opinion, he deserves a Dumbfuck of the Year, at least an honourable mention or dishonourable mention, because the guy challenged me to do something. I went back and did it. And when I come back with the results, rather than saying, hey, man, we disagree, but fair play for going back, he turned his blind eye and said, what are you talking about? I don't see any land there. So for that reason, Sly, you get an outside chance, and it's up to Nathan whether you get pulled into it or not. But I'd say that you deserve to be in it because you are a dumbfuck.
Well, it could be Blind Man of the Year, and he would win that for Blind Man with Vision, if you know what I mean. But I don't know. Sly, again, he's come in when we challenged him to defend his experiment. Yes, like Mick West, he had his ass handed to him, but at least he had the balls to actually come in and say, this is my explanation, and let us pick it apart. So for that, you know, the guy deserves at least a little bit of credit.
Yeah, but he did challenge me to go and get something, and when I come back and got it, he didn't acknowledge that I even got it. He pretends that he can't see it because he's a dumbfuck. There's a fine balance here with Sly because the guy's not stupid. I honestly believe that the guy is A, intelligent, B, is good at creating videos, and C, I believe fully that he knows damn well that we do not live on a sphere. What he does is he cherry picks the arguments that support his position and presents them at best all the time, and he completely ignores all the shit that doesn't. So it's like, is he being just intelligent with the application of the science that he knows doesn't support him by ignoring it and then supporting the stuff that does support it, like a banshee warrior, or is he just a dumb fuck because, well, I don't know. Sly's on the. I agree, he's on the outside, but he definitely deserves a dishonourable mention.
I was just about to type out to the chat, but I'll say it now you've done. So any dishonourable mentions from the chat, and I'll read them out if you want to stick some names in that you feel we haven't given enough credit to in terms of their stupidity.
Soundly.
I don't know. These people, I think, the ones that you're listing at the moment, I'll just say it now, I think are actually just flat out dishonest. So Rumpus, I think, is stupid. I think Paul Voigt's stupid. You know, I think Sean Hufford's a complete idiot. And same goes for FE Math. I think he's totally delusional and deluded. Red Rhetoric, I don't know well enough to you know, maybe I'd have to get Jaron's opinion because he's had so many tanglings with him. And I don't know the guy from Adam, if I'm ruthlessly honest. You know, this is my first quasi-interaction with the guy. So I don't know, maybe you can offer an opinion on whether or not Red knows full well he's being dishonest or not.
Reds is one of those guys that when you have a SpaceX launch and you see all those millennials that are all cheering like fucking left-wing extremists pansy into each other's needs, he's one of those guys that'll be holding the guy next to him's willy while the SpaceX launch fires off because he's so excited. He's like a puppy with a new bone. That's what Reds is. So is he dishonest? I don't know how we can't. I don't know how we cannot see that. Like, basically one part of the argument falls apart and we don't live on a sphere, but he doesn't see that. He excuses that and he goes, well, what about everything else that does? I'm like, yeah, but there are blatant holes in the problem, and I don't know whether he's dishonest or whether he's just stupid. It could be a bit of both, but I look at Reds and think that he's an indoctrinated fool that's older than he sounds but acts like a 15-year-old because he's rockets man, and I just think, yeah, that's cool if you're into NASA and rockets and all that, but he argues that we live on a sphere, and to argue that we live on a sphere, he goes beyond NASA and stuff, and he does, to be fair, he doesn't really argue the NASA stuff, he does argue other stuff, and he is quite good at arguing. He used my own evidence against me to explain the International Space Station. For that, credit is given. But I also realize he turns a blind eye to a lot of stuff like boats over the horizon. He's still got a video up claiming that boats do go over horizons. And if anybody thinks that boats go over horizons, you are sadly mistaken. They don't go over the horizon. Very rarely you might see optical phenomena that allows it to appear like it goes over the horizon, but all too often it ends up getting obscured to shit because of stuff on the horizon that we don't really know what it is, but it's certainly not curved. But ultimately, is Red's being dishonest, or is he just a fool? Yeah, for me, he goes in the fool category. He's just indoctrinated. He's one of those SpaceX bods that holds each other's willies when they launch a rocket, and he believes that when that red light comes on, they're in the orbit of Mars. You know what I mean? It's like the red light means they're in the orbit of Mars, and I'm like, yeah, dude, it's just a red light, and someone on the other side of the wall's flicking the switch to tease you.
Sounds like cognitive dissonance.
Well, it's just indoctrination, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing how many of these guys don't actually critically analyze the stuff that they believe to be true. And they all say that they do, but they bloody don't.
Would you agree with my reasoning behind the 5 on the list then? I think they're all dumb and deceived.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that Mick West hasn't made it into there.
Same reason. Exactly the same reason. He is a disingenuous liar. He knows what's going on.
Reds is an indoctrinated fool. He believes anything that comes out of Elon Musk's mouth, pretty much. If it's something to do with space, he's definitely there. Sean Hufford has got the comprehension skills of a 6-year-old. He's unable to comprehend basic language, grammar, English. So he's probably the weakest link, in my opinion. Charles Flat Earth Math, is he a fool, or is he just
Hold on, we've got a candidate in the chat. Hello, Paul. How you doing? I see you. How you doing? The link's public, Paul. So, the reason you're being nominated for Dumb Fuck of the Year is because you claim there is evidence of the self-perpetuating molten iron core. We have asked for this for months. Now, you're in the chat. You clearly got enough time to be listening. So, we are calling you out as a dumb fuck. Vote for if you would like to see Paul, the guy who claims to be a self... Hello, Mike, how you doing?
How's it going?
Good to have you. If you'd like to vote for Paul Voigt, hit 4 in the chat.
Is there a reason you guys are completely copying Reds?
Yeah, to piss him off.
Yeah. We just realised that when Beeloo came out and they all started shouting at us and laughing at this Beeloo thing, whatever. I mean, let's be honest, nobody really knows where this Beeloo thing... We all know where it came from, but where that documentary came from, I mean, it came out of nowhere. But Beeloo was being laughed at. And we adopted it. We all adopted Beeloo, and he became our friend. And we all had an interpersonal friendship with Beeloo, and they hated that because we adopted it. Well, Nathan kind of had an epiphany where he thought, "Fuck it, I'm going to steal it." And I said, "You know what? I am so glad you said that." And I agree with him. Steal it. There are dumb fucks in amongst us, and a lot of people just accept what they say if there's an explanation, regardless of whether there's evidence that supports the explanation. People just accept it anyway. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering that, and then also you guys are breaking Nathan's one rule like over and over again.
I didn't give it in the intro, you'll notice.
Oh, the swearing rule.
I didn't give it in the intro.
Day, baby.
I deliberately did a slightly different intro.
Oh, I didn't. I wasn't here for the first 3 minutes.
So yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck all you flatheads.
Yeah, this video will almost definitely get demonetized. So, thanks for being here, Mike. I do appreciate it. But anyway, yeah, this video will almost definitely get demonetized. So it's like in for a penny. You don't often swear on this show, so I should really put bad language in the title. Sorry, say again.
We have Paul Voigt in chat saying, classic comment by Sleeping Warrior, quote, Snell's law does not apply in the Earth's atmosphere. Well, why don't you come in and join us, Paul, and we can discuss the merits of Snell's law in the same medium. And then we have Paul Voigt saying again, Sleeping Warrior contradicts himself. Refraction has a negligible effect in all cases, but sound bending towers are caused by refraction.
Just a distraction.
There are other causes causing bending towers.
Just a distraction. Your nomination, Paul, is for failure to prove a molten iron core, something we have called you out for months. See, Red tries this tactic too. Yeah? Tries to hold things over people when they don't actually have anything to hold over them. We are holding something over you. We have all the cards, Paul. So you claiming some nonsense while we're holding you to account just makes you look like a disingenuous coward, especially when there's a public link. This is not a circle jerk. Hello, IFTH. How you doing? You mute your watch page, my friend.
especially when Paul used to be one of the big heads in here, like going at you guys hard. Like this guy was
Yeah.
in here calling you guys all types of names every day.
Yeah, and do you
More
know
on
why that
this, more on
stopped?
that.
Do you know why that stopped? It was because one day.
Well, I mean, didn't they have like a what was it? What do you call it? A protest or something?
Well, no, it was one day. I said,
Like the baller protest.
no, one day there was a point with the Isle of Man arguments. Just prior to that, Hank Hill had made a valid point, and it was obfuscated by Paper Explanator. And I said to Nathan, perhaps we should use this opportunity as being the minority and not allow them to obfuscate points that we can actually win on, because we need protecting as the minority, because we don't have the cohesion that them lot have, the consensus in opinion, the majority rule. And unfortunately, Paul was the next one that it fell apart on. And we challenged him on something in the Isle of Man debate. And rather than let the point get lost, Nathan, he was the first application of it. Paul got cornered and he got battered. I can't actually remember what it was now, but I remember Paul was the first application of Nathan's metamorphosis from a caterpillar into I was going to say a butterfly, but it might be a moth. That might be a better word. So, yeah, that's why Paul won't come back in, because he was the first one to feel the wrath.
Yeah, but I think that makes it even worse, because those other guys they never really come in here like that. But I remember when Paul Voigt was in here every day.
Yeah, he was.
You know, talking about I'm a physicist this, physicist that, talking mad shit. And where is he at now? Like he's in the chat. I stay seeing him in the chat, but
he never
comes in here anymore.
He daren't come in because he knows the first thing that we're going to say is about that molten core evidence, Paul, and he has no evidence for it, so he can't come in. And that's why he's sat in chat right now. He's keyboard warrior and he's frantically typing away with. He's probably. I mean, it's late at night for him over there. It's 1 o'clock-ish or 12:30. So he's probably sat there with a bottle of rum or vodka or whatever he drinks, and he's thought, bastard, 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 and he's like typing away frantically, and he's getting turbo keys. But ultimately, the guy
right now he's quoting you. He's quoting you in 2017. Like what the hell are you doing, Paul? Just come in. Be honest, come in the chat.
He's quoting me there. He's quoting me there. Soundly created a CGI bird and placed it on one of the CGI towers. Actually, Paul Voigt, that was Nummy. Nummy was the one that made that claim. I happen to agree with him. I believe that Soundly has faked that evidence completely.
I agree.
It wasn't my claim. It was Nummy's claim. So the accuracy of your reciting is a bit comparable to Sean Hufford's. Unable to cite people properly, accurately, or intelligibly, because he's just getting it wrong. You're putting a really good case forward here, Paul, for being.
You are. I'm glad Paul's come up, because he was like the outsider, if you know what I mean, because he's so unknown. I mean, no one gives a crap about him, let's be honest. But, you know, now he's in the chat, people can get a bit intimate with him in the chat and decide whether or not he's worthy of their vote. I mean, people literally can ask him a few questions. You know, feel free in the chat to ask this dumb fuck a few questions and see what answers you get. You know, start with the Molten 9 core, ask him a bit about see how he gets on. Just have a test.
Yeah, so Vinegar Stroke, shout out to her companion who's trying to watch the football, but all he's hearing is flat earth stuff. And secondly, Paul Voigt claims that on the Foucault's pendulum, Sleeping Warrior says the rotation of the earth should cause Foucault pendulum to swing all on its own. Yeah, Paul, it should. Because if the earth's supposed to be rotating, you'd have the centrifugal force caused by the earth, and then it would be counteracted by the weight of the pendulum that'll reset it. So it should swing all by itself, Paul. That's the earth that we do not live on. Of course, it doesn't do it. But you're laughing at me for making the claim. But on your world, that's what should happen. Doesn't do it, though, does it? Oh, look at Captain Bullshit there. You agreed with the CGI bird claim, Sleeping Warrior. Why lie? Of course. I did agree with the CGI bird claim. I do agree with it now.
I still agree with it. I would agree with it too. You know, Nummy's done that presentation. I'm sure I was there when he did that presentation, and I absolutely agree with it. I haven't changed my position. Neither's Nummy, neither's Anthony. But anyway, let's not talk about that when we've got Paul Voigt in the chat. I mean, come on.
Shout out to Paul Voigt. Just bring that evidence of a molten iron core, Paul, that's got self-magnetized effects or properties. Even though it's supposed to be at 10,000 degrees Celsius and it's gone beyond the Curie temperature by some 9,000 degrees, bring that evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core that creates its own magnetic force without an induced force. It's just glorious, Paul. You're dumb. You are dumb. You make the claim that we have a molten iron core and you've got no evidence to produce it whatsoever. You are a dumb fuck.
So that's number 4. If you'd like to vote for Paul, obviously, you know, you can test the guy out, check out his intelligence levels. If you think he's worthy, vote for in the chat. At the moment, I'd say we've still got a front runner, which is the Rumpus. So as that's the one that got the most votes, while Oh, Karen B's voting for him. Look, check it out. There's a few people voting for him. I love it. Anyway.
Let's keep things in perspective. Paul's not the biggest dumb fuck. He happens to be in the chat, but that doesn't make him any bigger than people like Rumpus. Let's not forget Rumpus. Rumpus is definitely in the running here. Let's not get Paul, the late entry that he is, being the forerunner just because he's in chat. Let's keep perspective, guys, because perspective is what everybody else forgets.
Indeed.
Especially Rumpus.
Do you think he'll make a special appearance to accept his award?
Who, Paul Voigt? No, he'll not come back in. He doesn't want to be.
No, Rumpus.
Iron core, does he?
No, Rumpus.
Oh, don't jump the gun. He might not win. You know, it's not definitely going to be Rumpus.
I don't know.
Rumpus is the one that's the forerunner for me. It's my votes. I'm gonna put a 5 in chat for Rumpus because he is a moron. Well, no, he is a dumb fuck.
I mean, I saw a lot of 5s in there, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of 5s.
I don't know.
So what's the position, Nathan? Are we doing a 2-hour show or a 1-hour show split in half or what?
I hadn't really thought about that yet. I don't know. I mean, I'm on my own at the moment, so it doesn't really. I don't need a break to, tend to my kids' dirty nappy or anything like that. So no, it'll probably just continue. We'll see how it goes, though. If I do need a break, then I'll just stop it. But don't worry about the timing.
I'll just put my voting in chat so everyone can see where my allegiances lie. Rumpus, you are a dumb fuck.
So yeah, I mean, with Rumpus, we can go on forever about some of the things that he says. I mean, if you want the best example of this, our argument at the moment with perspective is that your calculator is an absolute value calculator, and we need to deal in perspective terms or relative terms. So if you go and listen to the last chat with Rumpus and listen to the amount of times he says it's a relative calculator, making our point, it's just priceless.
Do you know what the best thing about Rumpus is? Well, the worst, but it's also the best because it makes him in its worst possible light. Is you guys in the chat don't get to hear what he does in the background whilst Nathan's chatting away. And literally, you guys think Nathan's having a conversation with himself at times, but in the background, he's exploding like Mount Etna. He's like, you can't censor reality, Nathan. You can't censor reality, Nathan. And he's doing that continuously. I never get to hear what Nathan says because I can't hear it because he's literally twittering on in the background that much that he thinks that it has an effect. And the only effect it actually has is that everybody else on the panel cannot hear what's being said by Nathan. So when Nathan comes back to the Rumpus, Rumpus has no idea what he's been asked of. I've no idea what he's been asked of. And ultimately, he's just a sitting duck to be shot at. And that's the reason why he gets shot at so many times, because he obfuscates the point so much. I mean, you ask him, what colour's your favourite team, red or blue? And somehow he'll end up with green. And he'll have a convoluted explanation, and he'll end up with green. And it's like, that wasn't even the question. And he manages to obfuscate the point so unbelievably, reliably all the time, consistently all the time, that he deserves the dumb fuck, in my opinion. The guy cannot discuss, debate, argue. He's a moron. And I
think the reason he's getting... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I disagree. He's not a moron. He's a rubbish debater because he gets too emotionally involved, and Nathan pushes his buttons beautifully.
Yeah,
I don't like Nathan. I don't like your style either. But Rumpus allows himself to be wound up, and so he loses his own thread as well, which isn't a very sensible idea when you're trying to debate.
There's got to be a dishonourable mention for M. Scott Veach from Patricia's Hangout last night. I asked him, would he volunteer to go inside a vacuum chamber, inside a spaceman suit? Because obviously Mark Sargent has made the claim that he will get inside a vacuum chamber. If he's given a proper spaceman's NASA outfit, he'll go in there, but only if somebody else goes in there. I'm not sure if it's before he goes in or at the same time. And M. Scott Veach has volunteered that he'll go in the vacuum chamber in a spacesuit. And obviously, his daddy's an astronaut. He's able to get that. I'm sure he could get somebody to sort that out. And I think that would be the best thing ever. Because if a man in a spacesuit can survive in a vacuum chamber, at least it adds some credibility to the idea that we could actually go to, quote, space. Because at the moment, I agree with Mark Sargent. There is no evidence of anybody ever testing a spacesuit in a vacuum chamber. And I wonder why. Probably because nobody's ever tested it. And it's even better that the company that make the spaceman suits has never had a single failure. I would argue that's because nobody's ever been to space. But they would argue it's because their suits are fantastic. So let's put it to the test. Scott Veach is in chat. He's able to pull strings within NASA, I'm sure. And we've got Mark Sargent that's volunteering his body to science. And M. Scott Veach has also volunteered his body to science. Let's see what happens. 2 spacesuits, 1 vacuum chamber. Let's get the cameras in and let's see what happens. Prove it's a real vacuum with a little tub of hot water, cold water that boils. So we all know it really is a vacuum. And let's see what happens. And Mark, if you do die, at least you've done a good battle, mate. We'll all come to your funeral.
What do you think would happen if you're in a vacuum chamber without a suit?
Well, your blood would boil, wouldn't it?
Is there no evidence?
Eventually.
Because I really could have sworn I've seen a video with like a really old video with a guy testing a spacesuit in a vacuum, and I think like it went horribly wrong. Like I think in 2 seconds he said his tongue was boiling or something. Like his skin started melting or something. I don't know exactly, but
to be honest, mate,
it was crazy, and it was the only time that it had been filmed like that. And then after that,
to be honest, mate, the evidence goes both ways on it. You can find videos that say that you can do it. You can find videos that say that you can't. And the conclusion that you most logically and reasonably come to is, I don't know. That's the answer you come to. I don't know. And that's my position. I don't know whether it can work or not. But I agree that if it was true that there would be NASA endorsed videos showing astronauts going inside a vacuum chamber, dropping the pressure, dropping all the getting everything sorted, showing that the boiling water the water would start to boil, and there wouldn't be any doubt. But obviously that doesn't actually exist.
Why would they do that?
To prove that space is a spaceman suit resistant environment.
Why wouldn't they do that though?
No,
why wouldn't they do that?
Why would NASA care about demonstrating something that virtually everybody in the entire planet accepts?
So would you accept
transparency, isn't it?
Sorry, would you accept
they care about demonstrating everything else, right?
They're a tax-paid organization that effectively makes the mistakes. I know that they're technically privately owned, but they're funded by the state. And I think all citizens have the right to demand proof of the things that they're told are true. And where is the proof?
Within reason. I'm not.
What do you mean within reason?
No, it's a bit like
within reason.
What do you mean within reason?
On the moon.
What do you mean?
Isn't space a vacuum?
Hold on. You're all talking over each other now. Let's not get into an argument where we can't hear anything. So don't keep saying, what do you mean, Anthony? Just let him say it.
Well, no, it's fair enough. I understand Anthony's question. I think it's actually fair enough, because the test that you're proposing wouldn't be expensive or even very difficult to set up. But I doubt very much that NASA would be interested in demonstrating something which most people consider to be patently obvious.
Hi, Marlo.
Which is probably what I mean.
Well, I don't see the problem or the expense problems with proving it. There is no proof that spaceman suits work in the vacuum of space. That's a problem if you're telling people that spacemen go to space.
But you don't accept the evidence that there already is a man in space.
Can you prove any evidence of a man in space?
Well, the only evidence is video evidence and photography, but you don't accept that. And it strikes me, having listened to these chats quite a lot very recently. I've only very recently stumbled across them, but you, and by you I mean the collective you, seem to wish to say that you don't accept anything that you haven't experienced personally. Or
I have a question for you.
That would be empirical.
I have a question for you, bro. If it's space is a vacuum, right? Like these men in space, they're operating in vacuums, right? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So why aren't there vacuum chambers all over the place? Why is this not a thing? Like that's where they operate. That's where they do their work. Why are they? We all know about the NASA swimming pools, right? But why aren't there vacuum chambers that they're doing tests in all over the place?
Well, there are vacuum chambers, but they don't put astronauts in them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why aren't the astronauts, the guys who work in a vacuum, why aren't they in these vacuum chambers? Why aren't they doing all types of tests in in these
They
things?
do.
Like why
Well,
they do?
if you look this up, you would see that they do tests in vacuum chambers.
With humans in them?
Sorry, can I just clarify that? So, has the footage come from you? Have you gone and filmed them doing this and checked it's a vacuum chamber? Or like the space footage itself, does it come direct from NASA?
Does it have to come from me?
It has to come from, well, for example, if you had a car company that was producing a car, right, you would easily be able to find an external wind tunnel company that they had worked in collaboration with that you could go and chat to, you could go and have a look at the wind tunnel and see how it works. They don't just stop testing cars in wind tunnels, the environment that they'll be in, so they simulate it because it's cheap. And what we're saying is, why don't they simulate the vacuum of space continually, always, to test their stuff?
Because you have to test for, because you have to get them used to weightlessness, and you also have to get them used to vacuums. So you can't combine the two.
The reason?
No, you don't feel a
put
vacuum.
them in a vacuum. They have to test for vacuums. You just said that, right? We're asking why aren't they in the vacuums?
Well, yeah, they have to test the suits for they're sealed.
They've done this before. Putting them in the vacuum.
Well, you want to see a video on that? I can show you one.
Well, that's the issue. The issue is
That's what I've just asked. So will this just be because you're claiming, look, space is real because they've got a video of space, and our objection is, well, where's the independent testing of the spacesuits in vacuum chambers? And you're saying, well, look, NASA have tested them. I'll get you a NASA video. So it's like akin to me saying, do you accept that Godzilla is real? And you say, well, no,
it's not.
Well, it's just video. Other than the title of fiction, there is no distinguishable difference other than independent verification. So you can't independently verify. Why don't you shut your mouth, Milu? You can't independently. Are you going to shut your mouth?
I'm not saying anything.
I can hear you talking, so you are. Right. You cannot.
I'm listening to you right
now.
There
you go. You're talking again. You cannot independently verify the existence of Godzilla based on the information you are provided with about Godzilla. And it is no different. The standard is identical to NASA. You only have the images they present you on a screen. No more, no less. Because you cannot independently verify it.
So anything that you cannot independently verify is automatically fake?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm an auto-hoaxer in that regard. Yeah, if I can't independently verify it, then there's no reason I would accept it as true.
So you don't believe in atoms?
I don't believe in things that I haven't independently verified. So if NASA, if you want to take it to atoms, I'll say I haven't independently verified it, so I don't know. What I do know with NASA is that their images are fake and they have people on trapeze. I've used trapeze. Have you?
They don't work like how.
Have you used trapeze? Was my question.
Yes, of course.
You've used a trapeze?
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Why
when
is that
did
a lie?
you use it? What was the reason for you using it?
It was an event.
What event? What was the name of the event?
You get a one free school. It was a trapeze school, and you get one free class.
What was the name of the trapeze school? What was the name of the trapeze school?
Well, it's in New York. It's by the pier.
Not where. What's the name of it? You're a liar. You're a lying sack of shit, Milu. Yeah? In fact, what the hell are you even doing here? Get out. Don't bloody lie to me. Don't tell me you've been to a trapeze school when you haven't. Yeah? I've been on a trapeze. I went to performing arts school. I know what a trapeze is. For any idiot out there who may also be labelled dumb fuck for not noticing that there's a bloody trapeze that they're hanging from, then yeah, you're not going to claim that you also know trapeze here, Milu, so you're getting kicked out for lying. Just a liar like all of the ballers. And when you're in a tricky position and you want to claim that it's all real and I have better information than you because I've done something you haven't, you claim you've also done it so you can get around my argument. They're on trapeze on the ISS. Anybody who can't see that is an idiot.
I think part of the issue...
If he saw an atom before, he asked you, do you believe in atoms? If he's seen atoms?
Yeah, but he's going to just default to the authority. He's going to say, yeah, I defer to them because they study it. But my point is just to echo what you're saying, Chocolate, is the fact that we see 99% footage of underwater operations. Okay, well, that's all we see. So what we're saying is basically show us. Okay, let's do one function. Okay, you guys are going to practice one function. and you show us how you practice that one function underwater. Okay, now you've got the weightlessness part. Great. Now go into a vacuum chamber and perform that same function in a different environment. But we don't see them doing that. All we see is them floating around. We don't see them in a vacuum chamber performing the functions that they show us they do with ease underwater.
Exactly. And then and to go back to this guy, I don't know your name. What's your name? IFTH.
Ian.
Yeah, to go back to what you said about NASA and why would they be interested in showing us this? Well, I mean, they're interested in showing us everything else, right? I mean, they have events where they show up. They have centers where you can go and walk through NASA history and all of this shit. So why wouldn't they be interested in showing us that, which is the key part of what they do, right? I mean, again, they work in space. That's their job. So why are they in pools all day? You know, we all hear about the pools, but where are the astronauts in the vacuum chambers doing tests? You know,
what effect do you think working in a vacuum would have on your ability to carry out the tasks?
Well, again, that's where they do most of their work, right?
Well, yeah, no, I understand that.
When they're not inside the ISS or whatever spacecraft they're in, right? That's where they're working when they're out. You know,
well, one of the issues
doing their spacewalks.
One of the issues we hear being brought up is how the air pressure in the suit would expand. So you have a spacesuit that not only compensates for weightlessness, but you also have a spacesuit that compensates for the fact that that space is trying to equilibrate the air within your suit, sucking it out. So you're putting them into a situation underwater where the pressure is trying to squeeze them to death, and then you're putting them in reality up in space where that's not the environment they're in. So you're asking what relevance there is to show working in a vacuum chamber. It's because we understand that not only is the air of the suit trying to get out and expand, but so is the oxygen in their body.
I'm suggesting that there is no need to practice working in a vacuum in the same way, though, that there is a need to practice, they do it underwater to simulate weightlessness, because that genuinely does affect your ability to do your work. In a spacesuit, given that the pressure that it's at is actually relatively low, and so the fabric only has to contain about 1 atmosphere of pressure, which isn't very much. I honestly cannot understand what effect working in a vacuum would have. And
so let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. You just said that working in a state of weightlessness is a difficult environment to operate in, correct? Is that what you...
Yeah.
Okay. So the water simulates weightlessness, but the water also presents you with an environment of resistance. The atmosphere is not the atmosphere of space where you're not going to have. So imagine I'm in a spacesuit. I just got out of the swimming pool, and I'm like, man, that was hard work. All that water resistance was, giving me difficulty. And then you throw me up into space, and I'm ready for resistance, and I overcompensate, and then come on, man. What you're saying is complete. No, I'm going to say this in the nicest way. What you're saying is a complete spin. You're just spinning. Because what you said makes no sense. Working in weightlessness, that's not the issue. Working in water is the issue. Yeah, I think working in water and trying to do your task is going to be difficult, but that's not the environment of space.
What is it that you think that there's?
It's the equivalent of trying to teach somebody how to swim by throwing them in a sandbox.
No.
It's
no.
What do you mean no? It's the same thing.
No.
They're two completely different mediums. Why would you train if it's possible to create a suit that could withstand the vacuum of space? Why are they not just training in them? And where are these the fancy companies that are coming up with the latest versions of these things and showing us the tests and showing us, you know, how the fancy new suits of 2020 are going to be awesome in space, you know? Like, where is all that shit? You
I have
have
no,
that for every other technological company. Why don't you have that for NASA?
I don't know, but
Right?
may I try again?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. No, it's okay. It's cool. I understand what you're doing when you are in space, when you're outside of the spacecraft, whatever one it is. You are, as you say, you're working in zero resistance to movement. Yeah.
When am I doing
when
this?
you're
Sorry,
in,
I'm a bit confused. You said when you go to space. You sound
yeah.
like you know a lot about this. So can you tell me from your own experience? Is this correct? Yeah, from your experience.
How do you mean? I haven't been to
Sorry,
space now.
hold on. Let me just give this guy clarity. Do you know what the words "in your own experience" mean?
Yes.
Right. So is this in your own experience?
It's in my understanding.
Sorry, I asked you if you understood what "in my experience" means. Is the answer to that question? Is
Why
this
are you being
in...
so aggressive?
Shut up! Answer my
Why are you being
question.
so
Is this
aggressive?
in your experience, yes or no?
Gosh, you're easy to trigger.
Answer the question. Have you experienced any of this stuff that you're asserting? When you tell me that you will experience this from space, have you experienced it so that you can tell me how I will experience it when I go to space?
No.
Right. So why the hell are you telling us this?
Because I'm challenging the idea that it's necessary to practice in a vacuum chamber.
You haven't got the slightest notion what it's like to be in a vacuum, sir. We've just established that. I'll ask you again. Why the hell are you telling us this?
The same, I would say the same back to you. Why do you think it's important to practice in a vacuum chamber?
I think it's nonsense. We don't have a vacuum of space. It's ridiculous. That's what I would assert. I think the entire thing is a charade. It's a play. That's all it is.
I understand that that's what you think.
No, I have used trapeze. I'll ask you the same question I asked Milo. Have you ever used a trapeze?
No, I haven't. No,
Right, I have. And what they are doing on the ISS is trapeze.
I don't believe you.
You don't have to believe me. Shit for brains. I'm telling you because I've done it. This is in my Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! This is in my experience. I have experienced it firsthand personally. So you believing me, I don't care what you believe. I have experienced it firsthand. I can tell you what a trapeze does and what it looks like. It looks like the presentations they give you from the ISS. I can tell you this from my personal experience. So when you tell me what space does and what you, meaning me, can do when I go there, I rip you a new one.
So you really don't think that there's any necessity to train astronauts in a vacuum chamber when they work in the very essence of the vacuum of space? You're really going to say...
If Nathan's correct, they don't, and so no, of course there isn't any need to.
Excuse me?
Well, I don't believe it either. I'm asking you.
But I can't answer.
I'm asking...
Whatever I answer, Nathan will come in and start shouting.
Dude, I'm just asking... Dude, it's not a hard question. You wouldn't think that it would be necessary to train these guys in a vacuum chamber if you're going to send them to the vacuum of space?
Yes.
Okay. So we're just saying, why don't we see that more often?
Well,
right? Why don't we see that? Why do we see the pools all day, but we don't see the vacuum chambers? We don't see the guys in the vacuum chambers.
Maybe I misunderstood
that it is a vacuum chamber. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to trick you in any way.
No, I understand. I'm sorry.
I'm just asking a basic question.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Who are you? What's your name?
Chocolate Saiyan.
I beg your pardon?
Chocolate Saiyan.
Chocolate Sam. Right. Okay.
Chocolate.
It's just that I've got
call me Chocolate.
Chocolate, right. It's just that I have a name to use, that's all. And my name's Ian, not I've just
Hi, Owen. Is that you?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry to interrupt.
I don't think that they have any necessity to practice doing the tasks they're going to have to do in a vacuum chamber. Because I don't think that being in a vacuum will provide them with any difficulties whilst they're in space. What will...
do you mind if I... Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you mind if I give you a good example for why it would be important to be in a vacuum chamber?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. So I've been working in the garden for the last 2 or 3 days, and I'm cut to ribbons because my hands and my elbows and all my extremities have been caught by brambles and sharp objects while I've been playing with tools and stuff like that. Do you think that a little nick in a spaceman's suit by accidentally slashing it with a knife or a screwdriver or something like that, and the effects that would cause in regards to the pressure differential within the environment within the spacesuit, do you not think that would be something that they would want to practice against to show what happens if they do put a tear in their outfit accidentally?
Honestly, no. I don't think they would want to practice it. I don't think they would want to practice cutting a suit in a vacuum because that would be extremely hazardous. But
what if that were to happen?
Hold on. What do you mean, but? That's the point. Hold on. Before you go on to your but, that's the point. Wouldn't you want to test for things that are extremely hazardous in a more controlled environment than space, if it exists, i.e. a vacuum chamber? And you're saying, well, that would be hazardous. Oh, right, so it's just less dangerous to not test at all and send them into the treachery of space that doesn't exist.
No, I didn't say the vacuum chamber itself was hazardous. I said that ripping a suit open whilst in a vacuum chamber would be hazardous.
Yes, that's what they're testing. That's what we're saying. Yes, that would be hazardous, and you would want to test against that happening inadvertently and not knowing the effect.
Why?
Well, because it might happen while you're in space, somewhere we claim doesn't exist, because we see people on trapeze, and we see people in pools. So that's why, in case it happened and was real, and they might actually be in a life-threatening position, which we don't assert they are, otherwise they'd be testing in case something like a tear in the suit occurred in a vacuum chamber, but they don't, because you don't think it's necessary to test for these very dangerous circumstances. Apparently that's not necessary.
Hey, what's up, Arwen?
So just to read Unattainable Existence's comment, he says, a tear in a spacesuit would literally kill the person inside within seconds. Why would they test that? Well, wouldn't you want to have a procedure and a protocol that was in place that you could act quickly if you accidentally not killed yourself, you accidentally cut your spacesuit? That would be the point of testing in a vacuum.
It really depends on how the suit would be cut. Just basically a needle point, then you could basically block it somehow, or roughly like put duct tape over it. But it's like a big fissure, then the surface through which pressure could escape would be extreme.
Arwen, that's my point. If there was a pinprick hole,
nigger.
That's my point, Arwen. If there was a pinprick mark in it, then you could plug it with some duct tape or whatever. There would be a procedure that they could apply quickly because they would have a first aid kit to bandage the problem that they've just caused. But they should test for that before they went up there, right? Because it only takes one nick and they're dead, right? With any whatsoever,
exactly.
How are they going to act?
And that's not the only thing. There's an even more important reason why they should train in a vacuum chamber, and that is, how about actually repairing at outside hull jobs? Because working in a vacuum with a spacesuit in the free, no pressurized environment is very, very different from repairing in air pressure and, well, a huge contrast with trying to move and do things in water. So that could be really difficult. And if they don't move very carefully, they could basically throw a wrench into space and just lose it. Maybe hit a satellite or something. So
I don't think throwing a wrench into
they need
space
to train for that stuff.
They do, but that's why they do it in a swimming. That's why they do it.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning into this first annual Dumb Fuck of the Year. Results will follow in the next show. Also, a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do. But if you liked the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!